In today's episode of Blue Rush, we talking camp battles. We got 19 days until the Giants take on the Commanders week 1, but we have 2 days left until the Giants take on the Patriots week 3 in the preseason. B. London here alongside of Jared Schwartz. Jared, what's the camp battle that you're looking at most going into this third preseason game?
It's got to be Deontay Banks and Cordell Flott for that second cornerback spot, opposite Paulson Adebo. That's one that we've seen rotate a lot throughout camp. We've seen both work with the ones, both work with the twos. At one point, Banks was healthy and Flott was a little banged up. Now Flott is healthy. Banks is a little banged up. Hopefully, we'll see both of them on Thursday, against the Patriots. But we got to speak to position coaches today, and then we spoke to both Marquand Manuel, the passing game coordinator, and Jeff Burris, the cornerbacks coach. And one thing that stood out to me is they've both pointed to Deontay Banks' maturity a little bit, which is something that was under question last year. His effort. And I remember earlier in the summer, Banks was talking about finishing plays, and that was something that he was criticized for last year. Burris and Manuel both pointed out that he's matured from the spring to now. He's asking questions now in the meeting room that he wasn't a couple of weeks ago. And they really pointed to some of the veterans that they brought in, Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo, that having some of those veterans in the room has helped just rub off on Banks, and they've seen that positive influence, and we'll see how he does on the field, but at least from a maturity standpoint, they've pointed to positive growth in that respect.
And that's always a great thing, because you were drafted in the first round. To whom much is given, much is required. If you drafted in the first round, as a corner, I feel as though you should be in a Pro Bowl within your third year. We're going into year 3, so we're glad to see that growth. Now we can't wait to see it go out there on the field and him do it. One thing about Tay Banks, he's a player that thrives off of confidence. Remember that practice we were looking at it, and I guess he D'd up a tight end, and he did the whole seatbelt, arms out. And in my head, I'm like, man, it's a tight end. But at the end of the day, that's how he gets himself going. Flip to Cordell Flott. I think he did a great job against the Jets, especially on that slant route, cover 1 against Garrett Wilson. And I think that play right there, even though it was one play, I think that meant a lot, because Garrett Wilson is a top 5 receiver in this league. You think about the receivers that CB2 is going to have to go up against in the NFC East alone. Their wide receiver 2 could start on 30-something other teams out there, and he is a starter on the Eagles or the Cowboys or whatever, or the Commanders. So going into this third game, I'm hoping and praying that the Patriots try and pick on one of those guys so we can get a real true evaluation. And then I want to see those 2 guys get active in the run game as well. You're going to have a week and a half, 2 weeks to heal that body up. But if you need to throw the body around and get some violence in there, then now's that chance, that last chance to put some good stuff on tape. Trust me, I was a guy that had to play damn near the entire game, that third, or, well, for me, that 4th preseason game, because I was trying to make a team. These guys are trying to lock down a starting spot. Second position battle you're looking forward to going in on Thursday?
I think it really has to be Evan Neal and Greg Van Roten at the right guard spot. We spoke to the offensive line coach as well, and he said there's growth with Evan. He's he's impressed, but he's not satisfied with what he's seen. We saw Evan Neal play against the Jets. He last preseason game, he held his own. Look, it's been a little bit up and down making that transition from tackle to guard. It's not something that's easy for a guy who's as big as he is, but that's got to be the other. Other than that, most of the spots are pretty locked up on both defense and offense. Maybe there's a couple of special teams. We want to see a Turbo Miller or a Bo Collins. Earn a spot on special teams, but in terms of starters, it's really that right guard spot. Look, he didn't play in the first preseason game, Evan Neal. availability is the best, ability. He's healthy now. Let's see how he does on Thursday, and if he can really win that job.
And I was talking to Motor Singletary earlier, and he was talking about how impressed he's been with Evan Neal from making the change from left to right tackle, now right tackle to going back and forth from left and right guard. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL. Like, you are a former first-round pick. They're doing everything in their power to give you that opportunity to not only make the team, but to possibly push for a starting job. And then when offensive line coach was kind of talking and answering a question, he was saying, like, yeah, he knows it's a hard transition, but at the same time, this is NFL football. You got to get caught up to speed right away. So I wonder, everyone talks about how he can get a body on a guy and maul somebody. I'm wondering if they're waiting to see some things, I guess, on the cerebral level in terms of, okay, like Tom Coughlin used to say, know and know you know the offense, or know and know you know that play. I guess it's just like the intricacies, the details within the play, this step, this hand, that sort of thing for Evan Neal making that transition. Go ahead.
One thing that will help him, that today's news, Andrew Thomas is back on the practice field.
You're right.
They don't play right next to each other, but we saw in recent years when Andrew Thomas went down, the whole line struggled. When he's there, the whole line's a lot better. So just Andrew Thomas being there will help, the domino effect throughout the line.
My last position battle, or I guess and it's not as sexy as like two guys battling it out at receiver or cornerback, is for that third tight end spot. Greg Dulcich deserves to make this team. He has put some really good stuff on tape, not only just this year alone, but since he was signed to the practice squad last year, definitely made some plays. So Theo Johnson, he's a lock. Daniel Bellinger, I feel like he's a lock.
Then you have Chris Manhertz.
You have Manhertz, and I know that's a blocking tight end, but Greg Dulcich gives it's just another weapon in the pass game. And you just think about the different type of mismatches that you can have with a heavy personnel like that. With three tight ends, two of them can block. Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger, certified, those guys can block. Dulcich, you don't really have to be that blocker. You could be the guy that they leak on the flats or runs the corner route. I mean, I think for that tight end, for that third tight end spot, who do you think kind of locks that up?
I think Theo Johnson's a lock. I'm not sure if Daniel Bellinger's a lock, but he's been here. He knows the system. I think
can catch.
I think they like him. He can catch the ball. I think it comes down to Dulcich and Manhertz. And look, Manhertz has been here. They like him. He's a good blocker as well. He's a veteran. He's been in the league for a while, and that's for a reason. That's probably because coaches like him. I would probably lean Manhertz, but like you said, they've all kind of made a few plays, throughout the summer, and there's really four guys for three spots, really, and that'll be interesting to see who it's not as sexy, like you said, as a receiver or a cornerback battle, but it's important, and we'll see who takes it.
Lastly, I know I said lastly with the tight ends, but I have to put you on this spot right now because a lot of people are talking about this battle, even though it kind of really isn't a battle, but has Jaxson Dart done enough to where he could possibly start week 1 against the Washington Commanders?
Not start week 1 because, I think Daboll's been so adamant that it's Russ. It's Russ. And they're so adamant that they don't want to rush Jaxson Dart and that they want to let him sit and develop and all that. I do think he's done enough to be elevated on the depth chart to be the backup ahead of Jameis Winston, where he is active on game days. If Russ gets hurt, then it is Dart. Originally the plan was to him to be a third string, just sit and learn. He's looked really good. He's looked better and better, from the spring to the beginning of training camp. If you remember, his first throw of training camp was a pick 6, right? Yeah. Now he barely has any incompletions in the preseason games. I think that is where he has earned the role, is to jump ahead of Jameis Winston and be the backup, where they're comfortable. If something happens to Russ, he can jump in and be their guy.
I probably should have led with that so we can get all the clicks and views that we could. Anytime you talk quarterback controversy in New York, people's eyes are going to be all over that content. But Jared Schwartz, thanks for hanging out. All right, Giants are back at MetLife Stadium on Thursday against the Patriots to wrap up the preseason. We'll see you guys Thursday night.